Again, we did put some info over in the Discord yesterday. So if you're watching this or listening to this, you're certainly welcome to go sign up there. It's patreon.com/DFNS. Florida State's going to be without a couple of starters. And then there could be more coming on that this weekend against Miami. Certainly not good news. So if you don't want to read bad news, then don't go check it out. But if you just want to be updated and you want to support a little bit, I think you can get in for like $3 a month. It's not that much, and then you get access to the Discord. We'll drop news and nuggets time to time. Realistically, what is your long-term outlook on Mike? I mean, not good, and not because I don't like him or not because I don't want him to work, because I want Mike Norvell to be the coach here in 4 years, right? Like I like him a lot personally. I have spent time with him. I've been around him a few times, and I really do like him a lot personally. I also appreciate the values and the things he stands for and the way that he drives his guys to work hard and do the little things right and all that stuff. And I know that hasn't manifested this year, but I do appreciate that he does go about that kind of business the right way. I think he cares about his players. I think he cares about the program. I do think he cares about Florida State. I know that we'll probably get jokes about that just because people will say, well, if he cared about Florida State, we wouldn't be 1-6. All that might be true, but I think he's trying, which maybe makes the things that have happened even more sad. Why I am not super optimistic is because just in general, most coaches don't work out. Like the way college football works is there are 7 to 10 great coaches that work out on a consistent basis, and everyone else just jumps in the coaching carousel. You think about like teams in the SEC, like what teams in the SEC are like set for a while with a coach? Well, obviously Kirby, obviously Sarkisian seems like he's in a pretty good spot there. Obviously there are other coaches. Brian Kelly is in a pretty good spot. Although if he can't ever get over the 10-win hump, maybe he's not in a good spot because of their expectations. But it feels, you look at the rest of the SEC and look at what they've done, even powers like Florida and Tennessee, which they feel like they're in a pretty good spot with Heupel. Kentucky, because of their expectations, they're fine with Stoops, but they're calling for his head up there now. And so you just look at even the mighty SEC, what most programs do is they have a coach for 3 to 5 years and then they move on. That's just how college football works. And the reason for that is if a coach doesn't turn it around quickly, if a coach doesn't win almost immediately, you get a couple of years grace period and then you move on. Usually you only get that first chance to really capitalize on the new higher momentum. It's hard to capitalize on momentum when you're 4 and 5 and 6 years into a contract and in a program. You don't get that recruiting bump. You don't get that booster excitement. The boosters will never make more money than they made in 2022, 2023, right? There will never be as big of an NIL push as there was the way that Florida State won 19 games in a row. And so to me, just in general, this has nothing to do with Mike Norvell. It's very hard for coaches to turn programs around. What's even harder and what's maybe even more unheard of is a coach doing it twice, where a program is destitute in a terrible position, wins 3 games in year 1, and then he builds it back up, and then it completely falls flat again to where it's back down to square one and you win 1 game. I've never heard of a coach being able to build a program twice. And so to me, just thinking about that, not Mike Norvell excluded, it is very hard for me to think that Mike Norvell could do that again, be kind of the first coach to rebuild a program twice from the ground up. The caveat or the addition onto that is the fact of we don't know if Mike Norvell will make enough coaching changes to even matter, to even give himself a chance to turn it around. If we go into next season and Adam Fuller and Alex Atkins are our 2 coordinators, what is your confidence level that Florida State's going to be back to winning 8 or 9 games? You probably don't even want to go look at the schedule, by the way, if you haven't already. It's not super pretty, and it's not just the Alabama game. It is a very tough ACC schedule. You have to go to the Swamp. You have to go to Clemson. You play Miami again. And then obviously Bama in game 1. I think you play Virginia Tech. I think it's a tough schedule. I think it's a tougher ACC schedule than this year's is. And you swap Notre Dame for Alabama. So just in general, we don't know if Mike will make enough changes. Second, let's say he does make enough changes. Let's say he fires 6 coaches and brings in a whole new staff, reassigns people, moves guys around, Odell to off field, blah, 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 whatever. Let's say he does all that. There's no telling it's going to work. You don't, just because you make changes doesn't necessarily mean that those changes are going to be effective. I mean, even think about Mario. They're probably going to be in the ACC championship game this year. His first two hires with kind of an unlimited budget were terrible. And he had to go out and hire new coaches in year two. Is Mike Norvell, and so, okay, think about that. Is Mike Norvell going to get a chance to rehire a staff, hire a new staff right now, and then go out and hire another one if it doesn't work? I don't think so. I don't think he's going to get that afforded that opportunity. So there's question one of, can he get that bump again to rebuild a program for a second time? Can he make enough changes to matter? And number three, will those changes pay off? Will those changes work and be effective? Well, if all three of those things happen, then yeah, I mean, he's got a pretty good shot of turning it around. It is still Florida State. You shouldn't have to work that hard to get to like 8 wins consistently in the ACC. Now, what if we end up in another conference in 3 years? Obviously, that road to 8 wins probably gets a little bit tougher. But if those three things happen, yes, Mike Norvell has a chance to turn it around. The other big thing, and maybe question number 4 about could he get it all the way turned around, and this is a great question, and sorry I'm rambling, but hopefully I'm answering it thoroughly and well. Question number 4 is, will his mindset on building a roster change? Because the portal, I am not a portal hater. Obviously, I know it did great things for us. The portal is objectively harder to build with right now due to the simple law and theory of supply and demand. Florida State got into the portal and they were faster in the portal and they were quicker in the portal and they were better in the portal than everyone else for like 3 years. And then the rest of college football realized, oh, snap, we can just fill all of our holes. We don't have to just sit here with Tyler Van Dyke as our quarterback. We can just fill our most important hole by going to the portal and getting a really good quarterback. And so Florida State no longer has the advantage of, oh, we're the portal kings, right? We will beat everyone else because we'll use the portal. We'll get all the best players. We'll get the Keon Coleman's. We'll get the Jared Verses. We'll get the Jermaine Johnsons. We'll get the guys that everyone else wants because we're just first there. There's a lot more competition in the portal now. Everybody, except for Dabo, uses this thing. And so you wanted a Cam Ward, but you couldn't get him. You wanted a Simeon Barrow, but you couldn't get him. You wanted a Nick Scrouton, but you couldn't get him. And so to me, Mike's biggest advantage is no longer there in the portal. So will he reinvent his mindset and focus more on high school recruiting? I don't want to say that Mike doesn't care about high school recruiting because they're obviously investing resources there. They're obviously trying to get new recruits. They're obviously trying to get guys in the high school level. If you don't believe that, they tried to get the number 1 player in 2022. They tried to get KJ Falk. They tried to get Keldrick. They tried to get Falk at Auburn. The next year, they tried to get Blunt and McCray and Jeremiah Smith. Like, they've been trying to get the best of the best, and they've just been failing. Will they get better there? Now, a new staff would certainly help. Again, that goes back to question number 2. Will he make enough changes to matter? But again, will his mindset change enough to focus on that high school recruiting and hold guys accountable for failing? At this point, we are failing on the trail and we are failing at high school recruiting. And there hasn't been a lot of accountability that I can see to counteract that. In fact, I know there hasn't because everybody else just got raises last year, even though a large portion of their job is recruiting and they were doing it pretty poorly. So to me, that's like 5 questions all in one, right? Quick recap is, will he get a new bump? I don't think so. Will he do enough to change? I don't know. Will those changes be effective? There's no way to know. Will he somehow master the portal again? I think that's going to be pretty tough. And then 5, will he change his mindset on recruiting and hold accountability there? I don't know there either, right? And so my outlook on Mike is that he probably won't be here in 3 or 4 years because all those things, like, you'd need to go 5 for 5. You would need to go 5 for 5 in that. And if he does, I'll be thrilled because I like him a ton and I want him to be the coach. There's probably other questions that could be asked as well. There'd also questions that could be asked about his play calling and the way that he's setting up game plans and the way I'll cross those bridges when we get there. Let's get better players in here and let's get better coaches in here to coach the guys. And I'll worry about Mike's play calling another day. But yeah, I mean, that's probably a 6th question that you could ask is, will he hire an OC so that he can CEO this thing a little bit more, which I do think needs to happen. So long-term outlook on Mike, like, I don't know. I hope it works out, but what's your chances of those things going 5 for 5? 10%? What's your chances of going 4 for 5 there? 20%? What's your chances of going 3? Maybe around 50? I think he could change his mind. I think he could make changes on the staff. So 50% that half those things happen. So I don't know. I'm not super confident. I hope it happens. I like Mike a lot, but yeah, I don't have a great feeling about like long term with Norvell. That's just it's hard for me to and all of that said, kind of what I said at the beginning, it's really hard for college coaches just in general to turn programs around. I've never seen a coach turn a program around twice. Like I've never seen that. And so can Mike be the first to do that I'm aware of? If you guys know of one, certainly hit the comments and let me know. But I'm not super confident that Mike could do that. I'm not super confident that anybody could do that, right? That's not just a Mike thing. It's really hard to take a program from nothing to something. It's even harder to think you could do that twice. That's why I'm not super optimistic on the future. Mike's not going anywhere this year. Mike's not about to get fired or anything like that. And so, we'll continue to kind of support until a change is made. And hopefully I can be wrong on all that and he can certainly get it fixed. So, hey, I really appreciate Decadent Coffee and Dessert Bar. Again, Fulton, Maryland, Modesto, California, Warner Robins, Georgia. If you're in any location kind of near those, make sure that you're stopping by and saying hello. We'll get some product out to you guys soon. We'll get you links for all that once it does happen. Listen, I know that this week is not the most fun. I know losing to Duke's not the most fun, but I do appreciate you guys for tuning in and hanging out.